Hey guys, tonight we're going to untangle a fairy tale that's been knotted up with pretty bows and shiny lies for far too long. We all think we know Rapunzel. Right long, golden hair, a lonely tower, a dashing prince. Sounds romantic, doesn't it? Well, buckle up, because the real story of Rapunzel's hair is far more disturbing, grittier, and frankly, a lot less glamorous than any cartoon ever showed you. You'll find out that living with hair that long isn't just a styling challenge. It's a living nightmare that would make even the most dedicated influencer quit on. You probably wouldn't survive it. Not without some serious scalp massages and a whole lot of dry shampoo. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know where you're tuning in from, and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You find yourself in a quaint, if somewhat cramped, cottage garden. The air is thick with the scent of damp earth and blooming flowers, but there's an underlying tension, a quiet desperation that hums beneath the surface. You're not quite sure how you got here, but you observe a scene unfolding before you. Feeling like an unseen guest in a drama already in motion, a woman, pale and frail, clutches her swollen belly, her eyes fixed on a wall that separates this small garden from a much grander, more forbidding one. Her husband hovers nearby, his face etched with worry. She points with a trembling finger, her voice weak but insistent, towards something growing in the neighbouring garden. It's a patch of Rapunzel, a type of leafy green. Its delicate leaves are vibrant, almost luminous green against the dark soil. She yearns for it, a craving so intense it seems to consume her very being, a desperate longing that feels almost unnatural. This isn't just a simple craving for greens, it's a pica, a strong, often overwhelming urge to consume non-nutritive or unusual substances, or in this case, a specific food with extreme intensity. This common historical fact about pregnancy cravings, particularly severe ones, often led to desperate measures in times when access to varied diets was limited. Women, in folklore and real life, sometimes took significant risks or even committed petty thefts to satisfy these powerful urges, highlighting the profound physiological and psychological impact of extreme cravings on the human body. The husband, driven by love and a growing fear for his wife's fading health, succumbs to her desperate plea. He sneaks into the forbidden garden, past the imposing wall and under the cloak of night. You watch as he cautiously plucks a handful of the glowing Rapunzel, his movements furtive, his heart pounding in his chest. He escapes, for now, bringing the precious greens back to his ailing wife. Her eyes light up with a desperate, almost feral hunger as she consumes them. But the craving doesn't subside. It intensifies. She wants more. Always more. The husband, emboldened by his initial success, returns to the garden again and again, each visit fraught with increasing peril. He knows this garden belongs to a powerful sorceress, a formidable witch, known for her formidable temper and even more formidable magic. You feel a growing unease. This isn't a charming quirk, it's an addiction, a compulsion driving desperate acts. The Rapunzel, though seemingly innocuous, holds a strange, almost magnetic pull. You sense that this isn't just about food, it's about control, about power, about a bargain being forged in the darkness. One night, as the husband reaches for another handful of the prized Rapunzel, a chilling presence descends upon him. The air grows cold, the very shadows seem to deepen and coalesce, and a voice, ancient and resonant, crackles through the stillness. "How dare you steal from my garden?" it booms, shaking the very leaves on the trees. The sorceress, Dame Gothel, stands before him, her eyes burning with an incandescent fury. She is a terrifying figure, draped in dark robes, her presence radiating immense, undeniable power. The husband, paralysed by fear, falls to his knees, begging for mercy. He explains his wife's desperate condition, her insatiable craving. Gothel listens, her expression unreadable, then a slow, cruel smile spreads across her face. She offers a bargain, a chilling exchange. He can take all the Rapunzel he desires, but in return he must give her the child that his wife carries, the moment it is born. You watch as the husband hesitates, torn between the immediate despair of his wife's illness and the horrifying prospect of surrendering his unborn child. It's a classic dilemma, a Faustian bargain, and one that highlights a grim reality sometimes. Survival, or the perception of it, comes at an unbearable price. This unusual or little-known detail about historical bargains, often found in legal and social records, shows that extreme desperation, particularly during times of famine or plague, led people to make agreements that would be unthinkable under normal circumstances, surrendering future claims or even their own children into servitude for immediate relief. It wasn't always a magical pact. Sometimes it was a harsh economic reality. He agrees. He has no choice. Not really. The desperation in his wife's eyes, the gnawing fear of losing her, outweighs the abstract terror of the future. The Rapunzel, once a symbol of hope, becomes a symbol of his terrible debt. The child is born. A beautiful baby girl with eyes as bright as the morning sky and, from the very beginning, a surprising thicket of fine, golden hair. The parents cling to her for a precious few days, loving her with a fierce, desperate intensity, knowing that their time is fleeting, but then, as promised, Dame Gothel appears. She sweeps into their small cottage, her presence filling the room with an icy dread. She takes the child, without a word, without a glance back at the weeping parents. She names her Rapunzel, after the very plant that sealed her fate. You feel a profound sense of injustice, a deep sadness for the innocent child caught in this cruel bargain. You watch as Gothel carries the baby away, a tiny, helpless bundle, into the encroaching darkness. This isn't a kidnapping born of malice, but a debt collected, a promise fulfilled, however monstrous. Historians still debate whether the recurring motif of children bartered for food or pacts with powerful figures for survival in folklore across various cultures reflects actual historical practices during periods of extreme scarcity, or if they are purely symbolic narratives exploring themes of sacrifice, consequence, and human desperation in the face of overwhelming natural forces. For you, watching this unfold, the debate feels less academic and more like a chilling validation of humanity's darker impulses when pushed to the brink. Years pass. You observe from a distance, an unseen spectre witnessing the grim consequences of that desperate bargain. You see Gothel raise Rapunzel, not with affection, but with a possessive, almost suffocating control. The girl is kept isolated, taught that the outside world is a dangerous, terrifying place, filled with evils that only Gothel can protect her from. She learns to fear the unknown, to trust only her captor, and then the construction begins. Not a typical home, not a cosy cottage, but a tower, a tall, solitary tower, built deep within the darkest part of the forest, with no doors, no stairs, only a single window at its very peak. You watch as the stones are laid, one by one, rising higher and higher, a monument to isolation, a prison disguised as a sanctuary. Rapunzel, now a young girl, is taken to the tower. She is led inside, seemingly willingly, having been conditioned to believe that this is for her own good, her ultimate protection. You see the last fleeting glimpse of the outside world she will experience for a very long time as the single window is sealed shut. A cruel mockery of a viewpoint. Gothel leaves her there, alone, a tiny figure in a massive, empty stone cylinder, and her hair, oh, her hair, It grows and grows, not just long, but impossibly so, thicker and more luxuriant with each passing year, a shimmering waterfall of gold that spills down her back, then coils on the floor, then begins to fill the cramped space of the tower room. It's magnificent. Yes, but you see the subtle burden of it, the way she moves with a slight tilt, the constant need to manage its overwhelming mass. It's a symbol of her beauty, but also of her confinement, the very thing that connects her to Gothel and keeps her trapped. The weight of it must be immense. You can almost feel the constant tugging, the dull ache at her scalp. You understand now. This isn't just a fairy tale. It's a chilling study in psychological manipulation, isolation, and the terrifying price of a desperate hunger. And the hair is not just a plot device. It's a living, growing, inescapable prison. The chilling solitude of the tower, a stone cylinder reaching towards an indifferent sky, became your entire world. You aren't just an observer anymore. You are Rapunzel, feeling the cold, rough stone beneath your bare feet, the perpetual twilight of the single window at the very top. The air inside is still, heavy with the scent of dust and the faint, sweet perfume of your own endlessly growing hair. Gothel comes every day. Her visits are the only break in the crushing monotony, the only connection to anything beyond these unyielding walls. You hear her call from below, her voice echoing up the sheer face of the tower. Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair, and you obey. A practiced, almost robotic motion, you gather the immense weight of your golden tresses, winding them around the sturdy hook embedded in the window frame, then releasing the cascade down the side of the tower. It's a strange, almost ritualistic act, the very tool of your confinement becoming the means of your connection. The first time you felt the tug, the slight pull as Gothel began her climb, you almost cried out. The pressure on your scalp was intense, a sharp, localized pain that radiated down your neck. You had to brace yourself, hands gripping the stone window frame until your knuckles ached, muscles tensing to absorb the strain. Gothel, despite her age, is surprisingly nimble, but she's also heavy, and the friction of her ascent, the shifting weight, is a constant, grinding agony. You learn to anticipate it, to prepare for the moments of intense strain as she pulls herself up, foot by foot, using your hair as her ladder. It's not just a beautiful golden rope, it's a living, growing extension of your very self, enduring immense stress with every single climb. This brutal reality highlights a common historical fact about the physical limits of human hair. While incredibly strong when properly braided or bundled, a single strand can support up to 100 grams, or about 3.5 ounces, and a full head of hair could theoretically support several tons if the root were strong enough. The stress on the follicles themselves, where the hair attaches to the scalp, is immense when significant weight is applied. The constant pulling and friction from someone climbing it would cause excruciating pain, potentially leading to immediate hair loss in chunks, scalp tearing, and even severe neck injuries. You are enduring an impossible feat of epidermal endurance, your scalp a constant battlefield of micro-traumas. Just imagine the throbbing headaches, the constant tension in your neck and shoulders. It's a miracle you haven't gone bald, or perhaps paralyzed. Your days are a cycle of quiet solitude. You watch the sun track across the tiny square of sky visible from your window, marking the passage of time. You sing. Oh, how you sing. Your voice, clear and pure, fills the echoing chamber of the tower, a haunting melody that speaks of loneliness and a yearning for something you can't quite name. Gothel has taught you songs, simple tunes, but you often improvise, weaving melodies born of your confinement, the only true freedom you possess. You learn to tend to your hair. It's a monumental task, a constant, consuming chore. It reaches the floor, then pulls around your feet, then begins to fill the cramped space, a shimmering golden sea. You brush it, section by section, for hours each day, working out tangles, smoothing knots. The sheer volume of it is overwhelming, its weight a perpetual presence on your head and back. You meticulously coil it, arrange it, try to keep it from becoming a tangled, suffocating snare in the small room. Imagine the knots, the breakage, the sheer amount of conditioner you'd need. It's like living with a literal waterfall of gold, constantly flowing, constantly demanding attention. Gothel teaches you only what she deems necessary. Simple reading, basic arithmetic, and elaborate embroidery. Your fingers, nimble from hours of brushing and braiding, become adept with needle and thread. You create tapestries on the rough stone walls, images born from your imagination, from the stories Gothel sometimes grudgingly tells you, or from the fleeting glimpses of the outside world you catch from your high window. These tapestries are your only connection to beauty, your only creative outlet in this barren existence. She rarely speaks of the outside world, save to paint it as a terrifying place of disease, deception, and unimaginable danger. The world is full of cruel men and cunning women, she whispers, her voice laced with a subtle venom. Only I can keep you safe, my dear Rapunzel. You believe her, because what else is there to believe? She is your sole source of information, your only link to reality. Her words are your truth, absolute and unyielding. This constant indoctrination, this meticulous control of information, is an unusual or little-known detail about the methods of psychological manipulation. Gaslighting and isolation are powerful tools used to create dependency and control by systematically presenting a distorted reality and eliminating external validation. The manipulator can make the victim doubt their own perceptions and cling to the abuser as their sole source of truth and safety. You are living in a meticulously constructed prison of the mind, where the bars are not just stone, but fear and carefully curated lies. Sometimes you dream of the outside, vague, shimmering images of green fields, bright blue skies, laughing faces. They are fleeting, elusive, and always fade upon waking, leaving you with a profound sense of longing that you can't fully articulate. You dismiss them as mere fantasies, childish imaginings, a product of your solitary confinement. Gothel would say they were the whispers of evil, trying to lure you to your doom. The silence of the tower is profound, a deep, echoing quiet broken only by your own soft singing, the rustle of your hair, and the occasional creak of the aging stone. You crave sound, any sound that isn't your own. You sometimes press your ear to the cold stone, imagining the distant sounds of a forest, the rustle of animals, the whisper of wind through leaves. But there is nothing, just the vast, empty quiet. Historians still debate whether the recurring motif of isolated maidens in towers in medieval and early modern European folklore was purely a symbolic representation of female chastity and societal control, or if it drew from actual instances of aristocratic women being confined for political, social, or even medical reasons, thus offering a grim historical precedent for extreme isolation. For you, the debate is irrelevant. You are living the stark reality of that isolation, feeling every moment of its crushing weight. As you grow older, your hair becomes even more spectacular, more overwhelming. It is no longer just a burden. It is a force of nature within your small room. You learn to manage it, to coil it tightly, to create intricate braids that keep it somewhat contained. But even then, it spills over, a living, breathing entity that dominates your space. You can barely move without stepping on it, without feeling its constant, subtle weight. You find yourself sitting amidst its golden coils, a queen on a throne of living light, yet utterly trapped by its very existence. You occasionally catch glimpses of yourself in a small, polished metal mirror Gothel allows you, You see a young woman, growing beautiful, her eyes wide with a strange mix of innocence and profound longing. Your hair, your magnificent hair, frames your face, a halo of gold, yet it's also a constant, visible reminder of your prison, the very chain that binds you. You run your fingers through its endless strands, feeling the surprising strength of each individual hair, knowing that it holds the power to connect you to the outside world, or keep you forever bound to your captor. The choice, if it ever came, would be yours, and yours alone. But for now, there is no choice. There is only the tower, the hair, and the daily ritual of waiting for Gothel's familiar call. The endless coiling mass of your hair became not just a physical burden, but a constant, living presence in the tower. It was always there, a shimmering golden river that flowed around your feet, filling every available space, demanding your attention. You spent hours each day tending to it, brushing out tangles that seemed to form of their own accord, painstakingly smoothing each strand. The sheer volume was staggering, and the weight, though you had grown accustomed to it, was a subtle, persistent ache at your scalp, a constant reminder of the physical demands of your unique confinement. Gothel, in her meticulous control, ensured that the task of hair care was a significant portion of your daily routine. She would inspect your work with a critical eye, sometimes even running her own surprisingly rough fingers through your tresses, searching for a missed knot, a dull patch. Your hair is your glory, Rapunzel, she would often intone, her voice a low purr that held an underlying current of warning. And your only purpose, guard it well. This constant emphasis on your hair, not as part of you, but as a separate, almost sacred entity, reinforced its dual nature, both beautiful and a tool of your imprisonment. Your world remained the same, a solitary existence dictated by the sun's passage across the tiny window and Gothel's infrequent visits. You continued to sing, your voice growing stronger, more resonant with each passing year, filling the echoing chamber with melodies both joyful and melancholic. You embroidered tapestries, their vibrant colours a stark contrast to the grey stone, weaving intricate patterns that spoke of an imagined world beyond your reach. These creative outlets were your only escape, moments where your mind could soar beyond the confines of your stone prison. You learned to cope with the silence, to find a strange comfort in its profound depth, but sometimes a desperate yearning for something new, something different, would well up within you, a sound that wasn't your own voice, a sight that wasn't the unchanging view from your window. You would press your ear to the cold stone, imagining the bustling sounds of a faraway town, the laughter of children, the clatter of horse-drawn carts, but always there was only the vast, empty quiet. Then, one afternoon, it happened. It was a day like any other. The sun was dipping towards the horizon, casting long shadows across the forest floor far below. You were humming a familiar tune, absent-mindedly brushing a particularly stubborn tangle from your hair, when you heard it, not Gothel's familiar call, but something else entirely, a sound so unexpected, so utterly out of place in your isolated world, that you almost dropped your brush. It was a voice, a man's voice, singing. It was faint at first, barely a whisper carried on the wind, but undeniably human. You froze, every nerve ending tingling with a mixture of fear and an almost unbearable excitement. Gothel had drilled into you the dangers of the outside world, the cruelty of men. But this voice, it was beautiful. It was full of a longing that mirrored your own, a melody that resonated deep within your soul. It was a tenor, rich and clear, echoing through the trees below. You crept to your window, pressing your face against the cold stone, peering down into the deepening gloom of the forest. You couldn't see anything, the dense canopy obscuring the ground below, but the song continued, a sweet, melancholic tune that spoke of love and yearning, of a quest for something lost. You listened, utterly captivated, your own voice instinctively joining in, harmonizing softly, tentatively, with the distant melody. The song stopped. A profound silence descended, broken only by your own ragged breathing. Had he heard you? Was he gone? A wave of disappointment, sharp and sudden, washed over you. Then, after a long moment, the voice began again, closer this time, and filled with a new, vibrant energy. He had heard you. He was responding. This unexpected encounter, this unsolicited contact, immediately raised alarm bells in your mind, trained as it was by Gothel's pervasive warnings, but the sheer novelty, the profound yearning for connection, outweighed the instilled fear. Your isolation had been so absolute, so complete, that any crack in its facade felt like a lifeline. This common historical fact about human isolation, particularly in sensory-deprived environments, is its profound impact on mental and emotional states. Individuals often become desperately starved for human connection, making them vulnerable to any form of interaction, even those that might be dangerous or deceptive. Your longing was powerful enough to override years of careful conditioning. The next day, you waited. You watched the sky, listening intently, your heart fluttering with anticipation as the sun began to set, painting the tiny square of your window in hues of orange and purple. You heard it again, the same voice, the same song, rising from the depths of the forest, and this time you responded more boldly, letting your own voice soar, intertwining with his, a duet sung across the vast, empty space between you. The days that followed fell into a new rhythm. Every evening, the prince, for you now knew in your heart he must be a prince, or at least a noble soul, would come to the base of the tower and sing, and you would sing back. It was your secret, a precious, fragile connection that brought a warmth to your lonely existence you hadn't known was possible. You learned his songs, and he learned yours. It was a courtship conducted entirely through melody, a symphony of longing and burgeoning hope. One evening, after your nightly duet, you heard a new sound, not Gothel's call, but a curious rustling, a scrambling sound from below. You peered down, straining your eyes in the dim light, and saw him, a young man impossibly handsome, with eyes as blue as the sky you longed to see. He was trying to climb the sheer face of the tower, scrambling on the tiny handholds, his movements desperate but determined. He was trying to reach you. A new kind of fear, sharp and immediate, seized you. What if he fell? What if Gothel found him? But another emotion, equally powerful, surged through you, a profound, aching desire for connection, for release from your prison. You knew, instinctively, what Gothel did. She used your hair, and in that moment, a desperate, forbidden thought solidified in your mind. You waited until Gothel had departed, her heavy footsteps echoing down the invisible path below. Then, with trembling hands, you gathered the immense weight of your hair. It was heavier than ever, a golden river spilling over the window ledge, your scalp stretched, protesting with a familiar ache as you coiled it around the hook and let it cascade down. Rapunzel, Rapunzel, you whispered, mimicking Gothel's call, a secret, subversive act that sent a thrill through you. A moment later, you felt the familiar tug, but this time it was different, lighter, more gentle. You knew it was him. You braced yourself, your muscles tensing, enduring the strain as he climbed, hand over hand up the golden rope of your hair. The pressure was still intense, a relentless pull at your roots, but the anticipation, the sheer audacity of this forbidden act, overshadowed the pain. It was a pain you chose to endure, a willing sacrifice for a taste of freedom. This act of inviting the prince, of using your hair as a ladder, was a deliberate defiance of Gothel's control, a step into the terrifying unknown. This unusual or little-known detail about the mechanics of human hair being used for climbing is that not only would the root strength be a problem, but the friction burns and abrasions on the skin of the climber's hands would be severe. Imagine trying to climb a rough rope made of individual strands of hair. The sharp edges of cuticle cells would scrape and cut, making the ascent agonizing for both parties. It's a testament to the prince's desperation, and your own, that he endured such a perilous, painful climb. He appeared in your window, breathless, his eyes wide with awe and wonder as he gazed at you, at your impossibly long hair, at the small, lonely chamber that was your world. His name was Julian, he told you, a prince from a nearby kingdom, drawn to your tower by your singing. You talked for hours, whispering secrets, sharing your dreams, a torrent of words released after a lifetime of silence. He spoke of the outside world, of forests and rivers, of cities and castles, of people living lives you could barely imagine. Every word was a revelation, painting a vibrant, mesmerizing picture of the world Gothel had so carefully hidden from you. Historians still debate whether the recurring motif of love at first sight in fairy tales and romantic literature was purely a narrative ideal reflecting societal desires for swift, passionate unions, or if it drew from historical instances of intense, immediate emotional connections forged in clandestine or highly charged circumstances, where the stakes were impossibly high. For you, meeting Julian, it was not merely love at first sight, it was the intoxicating allure of freedom, of connection, of a life beyond your stone prison, embodied in a single, brave, compassionate soul. You began to plan. Julian would visit every night, bringing you supplies, telling you more about the outside world. You would weave a ladder, slowly, secretly, strand by strand from the silk Gothel occasionally brought for your embroidery. A ladder that would eventually lead you to freedom. The thought of escape, of a life beyond the tower, filled you with a dizzying mix of hope and terror. You were taking a terrifying risk, defying the only authority you had ever known, but the allure of freedom, and of Julian's gentle companionship, was a pull too strong to resist. The days became a tense dance of secrecy. You sang to Julian each night, your voice now infused with a desperate longing for liberation. You worked tirelessly on the ladder, hiding it beneath the coils of your own hair, your fingers aching from the meticulous weaving. Each knot tied, each rung completed, was a step closer to a world you had only ever dreamed of, a world that Julian promised was waiting for you. The tower, once your absolute reality, was slowly transforming in your mind, from an inescapable prison to a mere obstacle, a challenge to be overcome. The hidden glances, the whispered words, the shared melodies across the twilight forest, these were the threads weaving a new tapestry of your existence. Julian's visits became the pulsating heart of your confined world, injecting it with a vibrancy and purpose that had been utterly absent before. Each evening, as the sun dipped below the distant tree line, painting the tiny window with fiery hues, your anticipation would build, a nervous flutter in your chest. You'd gather your impossibly long hair, its golden weight a familiar burden, and wait. His song would rise from the depths of the forest, a clear, sweet call that cut through the silence of your tower. It was your signal. With practiced hands, you'd secure the heavy strands, feeling the familiar pull at your scalp as he began his ascent. The pain was still there, a constant dull ache that radiated from your roots, but it was now a pain willingly embraced, a tangible cost of your burgeoning freedom. You could hear his grunts of effort, the occasional scrape of his boots against the stone, and then, finally, his breathless form would appear in the window, his eyes shining with exhilaration and adoration. You spoke for hours, whispering secrets and dreams, sharing the stories of your lives are his. A world of bustling castles and sun-drenched fields, yours, a small stone circle filled with the endless coils of your hair. He brought you little treasures from the outside, wild berries that tasted sweeter than any fruit Gothel had ever provided. Smooth, polished stones that felt cool against your cheek, and once, a single, iridescent feather from a bird you'd only ever dreamed of. Each object was a tangible piece of the world you yearned for, a physical link to the life you were secretly striving to reach. Your escape plan, born of whispered conversations and shared hopes, centered around the ladder. You meticulously worked on it, weaving silk strands that Gothel believed were for your embroidery into a sturdy, albeit fragile, rope ladder each night. Julian would bring more silk, unspooling it from small, discreet spools he carried. Your fingers, nimble from years of intricate needlework, flew across the delicate threads, tying knot after painstaking knot. You learned to hide it expertly beneath the voluminous coils of your hair, a precious secret burden, a growing symbol of your defiance. This act of weaving the ladder, piece by painstaking piece, was an act of profound self-liberation. It highlights a fascinating aspect of historical craftsmanship, the meticulous. Often hours-long labour involved in creating seemingly simple tools or objects from natural fibres. The strength of such a silk ladder, painstakingly braided, would be surprisingly robust, though still prone to fraying and weakness over time, a common historical fact about natural fibre ropes that required constant inspection and maintenance to ensure safety. You were not just crafting a ladder, you were weaving your very freedom, thread by thread, with an unwavering focus. The physical strain of your hair, however, was becoming increasingly apparent, not just the pain of Julian's ascent, but the sheer, constant weight of it. Your neck muscles ached chronically, your shoulders were perpetually stiff, and your scalp was tender to the touch. You had developed calluses on your hands from constantly managing its immense volume, and you often found strands breaking off, small golden fragments littering the stone floor, silent casualties of your confinement. Gothel, with her keen, possessive eye, began to notice subtle changes in you, a newfound vibrancy in your gaze, a lightness in your step, a hidden smile that would sometimes bloom on your lips. She attributed it to your maturing beauty, perhaps even a burgeoning satisfaction with your secluded life, but a flicker of suspicion, cold and sharp, occasionally crossed her features. She would probe with subtle questions, observe your reactions, her presence in the tower growing more scrutinizing, less predictable. You learned to mask your emotions, to temper your joy, to ensure your voice held no forbidden inflections. It was a dangerous game, a tightrope walk of deception. But the prize, freedom with Julian, was worth every terrifying risk. You even found yourself, in moments of extreme tension, recalling the prince's adventurous tales, visualizing the sprawling landscapes he described. You'd think of the vast, open sky, the feel of grass beneath your bare feet, the sound of a bustling village, using these mental images as a shield against Gothel's probing gaze. One day, while Gothel was meticulously combing your hair, searching, you suspected, for any hidden signs of change, a tiny golden fragment of your painstakingly woven ladder, loosened from its hiding spot, drifted down onto her dark sleeve. Your heart stopped. Time seemed to freeze. You held your breath, every muscle tensed, bracing for her reaction. She looked at it, then at you. Her eyes narrowed. She picked it up, feeling its texture, her gaze cold and piercing. "What is this?" "Rapunzel," she asked, her voice dangerously soft. You stammered, frantically searching for an explanation, your mind a blank canvas of panic. You mumbled something about a stray thread from your embroidery, a careless mistake. She stared at you for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then, to your immense relief. She simply flicked the thread away. A small, chilling laugh escaped her lips. "Be more careful, child. Accidents can be unfortunate." You breathed again, a shallow, desperate gasp of air. You had narrowly escaped, but the incident served as a stark warning. Gothel was more observant than you had given her credit for. You knew, instinctively, that your time was running out. The ladder, still too short, needed to be completed quickly. Every waking moment was now dedicated to its completion. Your fingers aching, your eyes burning from the ceaseless work under the dim, unwavering light of the tower. This act of nearly being caught by Gothel with the ladder fragment underscores a vital, yet often overlooked, detail about historical espionage and clandestine communications. Even the smallest, seemingly insignificant object could betray a secret, and the tension of discovery would be immense. The fact that Gothel noticed such a minute detail speaks to her obsessive nature and the highly controlled environment she maintained. Historians still debate whether the effectiveness of medieval or early modern surveillance tactics, especially within isolated noble households, relied more on brute force and physical confinement, or on subtle psychological manipulation and constant, detailed observation of the confined individual's behaviour and environment. For you, it was a terrifying demonstration of Gothel's omnipresent watchfulness, a stark reminder that even in your private moments, you were never truly alone. The sense of urgency became a constant companion, a low thrumming beneath your skin. Julian's visits, once joyful escapes, now carried an edge of anxiety. You whispered faster, worked harder, your dreams filled with images of the incomplete ladder, of Gothel's accusing eyes. The weight of your hair, once merely a physical burden, now felt like a leaden chain, a visible manifestation of your dwindling time. One evening, as Julian was halfway up your hair, a sudden sharp tremor shook the tower, not the familiar sway from his ascent, but a deeper, more ominous vibration. You clung to the window frame, your knuckles white, your heart hammering against your ribs. Julian paused, clinging to your hair, his face etched with alarm. "What was that?" he whispered, his voice strained. You didn't know. The tower had always been utterly still, a bastion against any external disturbance. The tremor was unsettling, a strange or unnatural disruption to your carefully constructed routine. You waited, but the tremor didn't repeat. Julian, after a moment of hesitation, resumed his climb, his movements more hurried now. You finished your conversation quickly, the usual lingering words cut short by a mutual sense of unease. As he descended, the golden cascade of your hair disappearing into the twilight, you felt a new chill, one that had nothing to do with the night air. The tower, your only world, had begun to show cracks, not physical ones, not yet, but subtle, unsettling signs that its absolute, isolated perfection was perhaps not as unshakable as you had been led to believe. The secrets you kept, and the secrets the tower kept, were starting to unravel, piece by terrifying piece. The tremor that had subtly, ominously, shaken the tower lingered in your mind, a cold premonition of instability. It was a crack in the carefully constructed illusion of your absolute safety, a physical manifestation of the secrets you kept. The urgency to complete the ladder, to truly break free, intensified with every passing hour. Your fingers, calloused and aching, flew faster, weaving the silk strands into a stronger, longer rope, a tangible pathway to a future you desperately craved. Julian's visits continued, but a new tension permeated your whispered conversations. You spoke of the tremor, of Gothel's increasing scrutiny, of the growing sense of impending discovery. He listened, his brow furrowed with concern, his hand often reaching out to gently reassure you. He promised to come for you as soon as the ladder was long enough, his voice filled with a fierce determination that mirrored your own. The idea of escape was no longer a distant dream, but a tangible, terrifyingly close reality. One evening, as Julian was ascending, halfway up the golden cascade of your hair, the wind picked up, howling around the tower with an unusual ferocity. The hair, already bearing his weight, began to whip and snap in the gale, a painful tugging on your scalp that made you gasp. Julian clung on, his grip slipping on the wind-lashed strands. He was struggling. You braced yourself, your body tensing, trying to absorb the violent jerks, but the sheer force of the wind, combined with his weight, was almost too much. Your scalp screamed in protest, a searing pain that radiated down your neck and spine. You could feel individual hair follicles tearing, a sharp, stinging sensation against your scalp, followed by the terrifying knowledge of lost strands. Then, just as you thought you couldn't bear another second, Gothel's voice, shrill and filled with a chilling fury, sliced through the wind from below. "Rapunzel, what is this?" Your blood ran cold. She had found him. She had seen him. Julian froze, suspended in mid-air, caught like a fly in a golden web. He looked up at you, his face a mask of desperation and regret. Gothel's enraged figure appeared directly below him, her face contorted, her eyes burning with an almost supernatural rage. Her gaze, however, wasn't fixed on Julian. It was fixed on you. A profound, terrifying betrayal settled in her eyes. "You have betrayed me," she shrieked, her voice reverberating against the stone. "You, my precious Rapunzel, whom I have guarded and protected from the evils of the world." Julian, seeing the terrifying shift in her focus, knowing the danger he had brought upon you, made a desperate move. He tried to quickly descend, to remove himself from your hair, to draw Gothel's fury away, but it was too late. Gothel, with a sudden, horrifying burst of speed, produced a large, gleaming pair of shears, their blades glinting menacingly in the dim light. Before you could even fully comprehend what was happening, before you could scream, before Julian could descend another inch, Gothel raised the shears, with a swift, terrible snip, a sound that echoed like a death knell in the oppressive silence. She cut your hair, not just a few inches, not just a section, but a massive, overwhelming chunk of it, directly at the roots. The sudden release of weight was jarring, sickening. A cold, raw patch of scalp was exposed to the biting wind, an agonizing sensation. You cried out, a raw, guttural sound of pain and despair. The golden cascade, your lifelong burden, your very connection to the outside world, fell away, plummeting towards the forest floor like a severed limb. Julian, clinging to the falling hair, plummeted with it, his desperate cry echoing as he disappeared into the darkness below. You clutched the remaining, drastically shortened hair on your head, your fingers trembling, feeling the ragged ends, the gaping emptiness. Tears streamed down your face, not just from the physical pain, but from the searing agony of loss, of betrayal, of utter, profound devastation. Your connection to Julian, your hope for freedom, your very identity, had been severed in one brutal, terrifying snip. Gothel's face, looming in the window, was a mask of cold fury, devoid of any warmth or affection. "You thought to escape me," she hissed, her voice venomous. "You thought to leave your only protector for the fleeting affections of a common prince foolish girl, and then came the ultimate punishment, swift and merciless. She grabbed you, her surprisingly strong grip biting into your arms, and dragged you, still weeping and disoriented. Across the small room, she pushed you towards the single window, forcing you to look down into the abyss where Julian had fallen. "Look," she spat. "Look at what your betrayal has wrought." You squeezed your eyes shut, unable to bear the sight, but her grip was unyielding. She held you there for a long moment, forcing you to contemplate the empty space. the terrifying silence that now filled the air where Julian's desperate cries had been. You didn't know if he was alive, if he was dead. The uncertainty was a torment worse than any physical pain. Then, with a final, brutal shove, she pushed you away from the window and towards a small, dark opening in the wall you had never noticed before, a hidden passage that led downwards into the tower's depths. It wasn't a door or a staircase, but a crude, dark shaft, smelling of damp earth and decay. "Go," she commanded, her voice like ice. "Go into the wilderness you so crave. Let us see how long you survive without my protection." You stumbled backwards, fear and shock numbing your limbs. You knew this place was part of the tower, but it felt utterly alien, a forgotten, terrifying dungeon without another word. Gothel shoved you roughly into the dark opening. You tumbled down, scraping against rough stone, falling into an inky blackness that seemed to swallow you whole. The last thing you heard, echoing from above, was the cruel, triumphant cackle of Gothel, a sound that would haunt your dreams for years to come. You landed hard on a damp, uneven floor, pain shooting through your entire body. The air was cold, thick with the smell of mould and something else, something metallic and unsettling. You pushed yourself up, gasping for breath, utterly disoriented. You were in a dark, underground passage, its rough stone walls pressing in on you. There was no light, no discernible exit. You were no longer in the tower, but in its dark, forgotten foundations, a subterranean labyrinth of despair. This abrupt, brutal expulsion from the tower highlights a common, historical fact about medieval punishments for disobedience or perceived moral failings. Public shaming, exile, and severe bodily harm were often inflicted as deterrents, particularly on women who defied patriarchal authority or societal norms. Gothel, in her monstrous possessiveness, was enacting a primal, terrifying form of punishment, removing you from the very world she controlled, casting you into a terrifying unknown. You stumbled forward, hands outstretched, feeling your way along the cold, damp walls. The darkness was absolute, a suffocating blanket that pressed down on you, making your mind race with horrifying possibilities. Was this a dungeon? A forgotten crypt? You could hear the faint drip, drip, drip of water somewhere in the oppressive silence, a chilling reminder of your isolation. Your hands brushed against something cold, wet, and unsettlingly soft. You pulled back with a gasp, your heart leaping. What was it? Your mind, still reeling from the shock and trauma, began to conjure monstrous images from Gothel's twisted tales of the outside world, an unusual or little-known detail about ancient subterranean structures, particularly those used for storage or confinement. Is there unique microclimates that often fostered unusual fungal growths or specialized insect populations? The soft, wet sensation could easily be a harmless, yet terrifying in the dark, patch of mould or a cluster of unfamiliar cave-dwelling creatures. However, to your traumatized mind, it felt like something far more sinister, a chilling testament to the psychological impact of sensory deprivation and extreme fear. You continued to stumble, your bare feet slipping on the damp, uneven ground. The darkness seemed to press in on your eyes, causing them to ache. You felt a strange, blurring sensation, a dimming of the already minimal light that seemed to flicker and fade before your very eyes. You rubbed them frantically, but it did nothing. The world was slowly, irrevocably, dissolving into an impenetrable blackness. Historians still debate whether sudden, unexplained blindness in historical accounts, particularly those associated with extreme emotional trauma or harsh environments, was purely a psychological phenomenon. Hysterical blindness, a symptom of rapid physiological stress, or a consequence of unknown toxins or nutritional deficiencies. For you, the world simply ceased to be visible. The last flickering image was the fading outline of the dark passage, then nothing but the terrifying, all-consuming black. You were truly alone now, blind and utterly lost in the cold, damp heart of the earth. The terror of the tower was replaced by the existential dread of absolute darkness. A new prison far more profound and terrifying than stone walls. The descent into utter darkness was not merely a physical fall, it was a plunge into a terrifying void where every familiar sensation was stripped away. The loss of sight was immediate and absolute, turning the subterranean passage into a disorienting, suffocating maze. You stumbled, your hands flailing wildly, desperate for anything to grasp onto, your bare feet slipping on the cold, damp stone. The air was thick with the smell of mould and something metallic, cloying, almost suffocating, an oppressive atmosphere that pressed down on your already strained lungs. You tried to call out, to scream, but your voice was a raw, choked croak, lost in the echoing silence of the underground. Your mind, reeling from the trauma of the tower and the sudden blindness, began to unravel. Images flashed before your inner eye, Gothel's furious face, the glint of the shears, Julian's plummeting figure. Each memory was a sharp, stabbing pain, a torment that eclipsed even the physical discomfort. You curled into a tight ball, shivering uncontrollably, tears streaming down your face, hot and futile against the cold, damp earth. You were utterly alone, abandoned, and terrifyingly, irrevocably lost. Hours bled into an eternity. You lost all sense of time, adrift in a sea of unending darkness. Hunger gnawed at your stomach, a hollow, persistent ache first burned in your throat, a raw, unbearable agony that made your tongue feel thick and swollen. Every breath was a struggle, every movement an act of profound desperation. You crawled, you stumbled, you pushed yourself forward, driven by a primal, animalistic urge to find an exit, a faint glimmer of light, anything to escape the suffocating black. Your hands, raw and scraped, explored the unseen terrain. They brushed against rough stone, slimy patches of moss, and once, a disturbing collection of small, skeletal remains, their brittle texture sending a fresh wave of terror through you. You imagined ancient creatures, trapped here long ago, their bones now serving as grim markers in this subterranean tomb. This common historical fact about underground caverns and forgotten passages is their tendency to become natural traps for animals, or even unfortunate humans, who wander into their depths and cannot find their way out. You were navigating a silent, chilling graveyard, each skeletal fragment a testament to the unforgiving nature of such environments. The silence was punctuated only by the drip, drip, drip of unseen water, a cruel taunt to your parched throat. Your ears, now hyper-attuned to the nuances of sound, strained to distinguish between the benign and the threatening, the faint scuttling of unseen insects, the distant hollow echo of your own ragged breathing. Each sound was amplified, distorted, feeding into the growing paranoia. You felt as if unseen eyes were watching you from the impenetrable blackness, unseen creatures lurking just beyond your reach, waiting for you to falter, to succumb. You stumbled, pitching forward, and your outstretched hands plunged into something cold and viscous, not water, but something thick, slimy, and strangely resilient. You pulled your hands back with a gasp, repulsed, the metallic, cloying smell filling your nostrils. It felt like blood, not fresh, but ancient, congealed blood, mixed with something else, something gritty. A profound revulsion seized you, threatening to overwhelm your senses, your already fragile mental state. You scrambled backward, trying to wipe the horrifying substance from your hands on your tattered dress, but the feeling lingered, a horrifying, phantom touch. This encounter with the viscous, blood-like substance highlights an unusual or little-known detail about the unique environments of subterranean spaces. Certain anaerobic bacteria can produce compounds that mimic the appearance and even smell of decaying organic matter, including blood. especially when mixed with specific mineral deposits. While terrifying in your blind state, it was likely a natural, if unsettling, geological phenomenon. However, to your traumatized mind, it was undeniable proof of something gruesome, a testament to the hidden horrors of your underground prison, further eroding your sanity. You crawled away from the disturbing substance, desperate to escape its horrifying presence, your every instinct screaming for light, for air, for anything that didn't feel like a living tomb. You pressed your face against the cold stone wall, trying to find a sense of direction, a point of reference in the utter darkness. Your world had shrunk to the agonizing sensations of the touch and smell, the terrifying echoes of your own fear. Then, through the cacophony of your own terrified thoughts, you heard it, a faint, almost imperceptible sound, vibrating through the stone itself, a murmur, a whisper, too indistinct to be human speech, too rhythmic to be merely the drip of water. It was a low, resonant thrum, almost like a heartbeat. Deep within the earth, it pulsed softly, persistently, a profound living presence in the desolate silence. You pressed your ear closer to the cold stone, straining to hear, trying to understand. The sound was mesmerizing, drawing you in, a hypnotic rhythm that seemed to penetrate your very being. It was both terrifying and strangely comforting, a reminder that you were not entirely alone in this vast, dark emptiness. It felt ancient, primal, as if the very core of the earth was breathing, a powerful subterranean pulse. Historians still debate whether reports of earth hums or underground vibrations in historical accounts and folklore, often associated with geological phenomena like seismic activity or underground water flows, were purely natural occurrences, or if certain individuals, particularly in deep isolation, developed heightened sensory perception that allowed them to perceive subtle, pervasive geological energies that most people ignore. For you, the debate was irrelevant. The sound was undeniably real, a rhythmic tremor that spoke of an unimaginable, ancient power lurking beneath your feet, a constant, unsettling companion in the unyielding darkness. You followed the sound, crawling slowly, painstakingly, through the labyrinthine passages. The hum grew stronger, more resonant, guiding you like an unseen beacon. The air grew warmer, subtly, almost imperceptibly, carrying a faint, mineral scent. You were moving deeper, not towards an exit, but towards the source of this profound subterranean pulse. It was a terrifying choice, a leap of faith into the unknown, but the alternative was to remain lost in the cold, silent darkness, slowly succumbing to hunger, thirst, and despair. As you crawled, the stone under your hands became smoother, almost polished, and occasionally you felt strange, almost intricate carvings beneath your fingertips, not rough and crude like the natural formations, but deliberate, purposeful. They felt like symbols, like a language etched into the very bones of the earth, a testament to an unseen, forgotten presence. Were you stumbling into an ancient tomb, a forgotten temple, a place of power, dark and primordial? The thought was terrifying, but the persistent hum, the promise of something more, pulled you onward. You reached a large open chamber, its vastness indicated by the sudden absence of confining walls, replaced by a profound, echoing silence. The hum here was overwhelming, vibrating through your entire body, a resonant thrum that seemed to fill the very air. You could feel it in your bones, in your teeth, a deep pervasive tremor that was both exhilarating and profoundly unsettling. And then, you heard a new sound, faint but distinct, above the hum, a slithering, a low, raspy hiss. Your heart leapt into your throat. Something else was here, something alive, and it was moving towards you. The slithering sound, coupled with the low, raspy hiss, sent a jolt of primal terror through you. You recoiled, scrambling backward, your hands flailing in the suffocating blackness. Your mind screamed, conjuring images of monstrous serpents, of ancient, forgotten beasts lurking in the earth's depths. Your blindness, usually a constant source of terror, now intensified the dread, amplifying every distorted sound, every terrifying imagined form. The profound hum of the earth, which had been your guide, now vibrated with a menacing intensity, a resonant thrum that seemed to warn of impending doom. You continued to retreat until your back pressed against a cold, smooth surface. It felt like rock, but strangely uniform, almost polished. You held your breath, straining your ears, trying to pinpoint the creature's location, its movements. The slithering ceased. The hiss faded into the oppressive silence, and then a new sound emerged, a soft, rhythmic clicking, like tiny stones tapping against each other. It was slow, deliberate, and undeniably closer. You squeezed your eyes shut, as if doing so could somehow make you invisible in the absolute darkness. Your body trembled uncontrollably, a fine tremor that shook you from head to toe. You were trapped, vulnerable, and utterly defenseless against an unseen enemy. This was it. This was the end. Not a quick, merciful end, but a slow, terrifying descent into consumption by a creature of the dark. But the attack never came. The clicking continued, soft and rhythmic, circling you. It wasn't aggressive, not hostile, more investigative, curious, a faint, almost imperceptible current of air, strangely warm, drifted across your face, carrying a new scent, not the metallic tang of blood, nor the damp earth, but something sweet, earthy, and oddly floral. It was vaguely familiar, a scent from the surface, a scent of life, not death. You cautiously, slowly, opened your eyes, though it made no difference in the absolute blackness. You dared to reach out a trembling hand, extending it into the void, hoping to make contact, to understand. Your fingers brushed against something cool and strangely textured, like a mosaic of tiny, incredibly smooth scales, not slimy, not rough, but almost delicate. The clicking stopped. A long, slow inhale, then an equally slow exhale drifted over your hand, warm and moist, and then a sound that sent shivers down your spine, a soft, almost melodic chime, like tiny bells jingling in the darkness. It was a sound of profound antiquity, of strange, gentle power. And then a voice, deep and resonant, yet incredibly gentle, spoke directly into your mind, not through your ears, but directly into your thoughts, a silent telepathic whisper that resonated with an ancient wisdom. Fear not, lost one. You are safe here. You gasped. A silent internal cry. A voice, a sentient being, and it spoke, in your mind. This unusual or little-known detail about mythological or folkloric creatures, particularly those associated with ancient or hidden places, is their frequent portrayal as having abilities beyond conventional communication, such as telepathy or empathic connections. This isn't just an animal, it's a guardian, a remnant of a forgotten world, capable of interacting on a level far beyond your human understanding. You tried to respond, to speak, but no sound escaped your raw throat. The creature seemed to understand. You seek light. You seek a way out. This is a place of transit, a crossroads of time and space. The path you seek is not yet open to you, but I can offer respite. Respite. The word resonated with an almost unbearable longing. You were exhausted, starved, and terrified. Any offer of safety, however strange, was a gift beyond measure. You felt a gentle nudge, a soft pressure against your side, urging you forward. You moved, hesitantly at first, then with more confidence, guided by the unseen presence. The air grew warmer, the hum of the earth intensified, feeling less menacing now and more like a gentle, living pulse. You felt the smooth, polished surface beneath your feet. No longer rough stone, but something that felt like perfectly fitted. Ancient tiles. You were being led, slowly, deliberately, deeper into the heart of this hidden place. You came to a stop, and the creature's mental voice resonated again. Rest here, drink, and know that the world you seek has not forgotten you. You felt a shift in the air, a subtle change in the current, and then a faint sweet smell like fresh nectar. You reached out, and your hands found a large, smooth basin, its edges cool and polished. You dipped your fingers in and felt liquid. Not water, not entirely. It was thick, almost syrupy, yet cool and incredibly refreshing. You brought your hands to your lips and tasted it. It was nectar, impossibly sweet and revitalizing, filling your body with a warmth and energy you hadn't felt in days. It tasted of 1,000 flowers, of sunlight and ancient earth. You drank deeply, greedily, feeling the profound nourishment seep into your starved cells. Your body, which had been on the verge of collapse, began to hum with new life. The tremor subsided, the burning in your throat eased, and a profound sense of peace, a quiet calm, settled over your mind. You were safe. For now. This common historical fact about ancient, hidden spring sources or subterranean waters, sometimes infused with minerals, is their often mystical properties ascribed by folklore and ancient cultures. They were believed to hold healing powers, or even provide visions, becoming sites of pilgrimage or sacred rituals. The nectar you drank was a tangible manifestation of such a belief, offering not just hydration, but a profound restoration. You sat for what felt like an eternity, resting, drinking, allowing the strange, ancient power of this place to seep into your very being. The creature, whatever it was, remained silent, a silent, watchful presence in the overwhelming darkness. You could still feel its gentle, rhythmic clicking, occasionally its warm breath, but it made no further mental contact. It was simply there, a guardian in this hidden sanctum, its presence a comforting, yet still mysterious assurance. As you rested, your mind, now clear and restored, began to piece together the fragmented memories of your journey. The barnyard, Gothel, Julian, the terrifying fall, the gingerbread house, the bog, the ancient road, the ruins. Each memory, raw and painful, was now viewed through a lens of profound awe. You had been through so much, seen so much, endured so much, and yet you were still here, still alive, still fighting. Then you began to notice something else, a subtle, almost imperceptible sensation, deep within your eyes, a flicker, a tiny, almost painful pinprick of light in the absolute darkness. You blinked, frantically, trying to grasp it, to hold on to it. It wasn't a sudden return of sight, but a nascent awareness of light, a faint, almost ghost-like shimmer. You remembered Gothel's cruel words, her triumphant cackle as she cast you into the darkness, believing you would perish. But you were here, and something was changing. This flicker of returning light, however faint, marks a pivotal moment, the phenomenon of partial or temporary blindness caused by extreme trauma or stress, sometimes referred to as hysterical blindness, is a fascinating, if rare, neurological response. Historical accounts sometimes describe individuals regaining sight after a period of intense rest or a profound emotional shift. This isn't a magical cure, but a physiological possibility given the right conditions. A dramatic illustration of the body's resilience when given the opportunity to heal. Your temporary rest, fueled by the mysterious nectar, was providing that opportunity. Historians still debate whether the recurring motif of divine intervention or miraculous healing in ancient myths and legends, particularly for heroes who endure extreme suffering, was purely a narrative device to inspire hope and convey moral lessons, or if they were inspired by rare but real instances of unexplained recovery or remission from severe afflictions, which, in a pre-scientific age, would be interpreted as supernatural. For you, this was nothing short of a miracle, a profound gift from an unknown guardian in a forgotten world, a testament to the fact that even in the darkest despair, the possibility of restoration exists. You lay there, allowing the subtle shifts to occur, the faint pinpricks of light slowly, painstakingly, growing brighter, resolving into vague, fuzzy shapes. The hum of the earth continued, a rhythmic pulse that seemed to accompany your own internal transformation. You were no longer just blind. You were in the process of seeing, moving from absolute darkness to a nascent awareness of light, a promise of a future beyond the shadows. And as the profound, ancient energy of the chamber surrounded you, you knew that your journey was far from over. This place, this hidden sanctum, was not an end, but a necessary passage, a place of healing and profound transformation before the next, and perhaps final, chapter of your enchanted nightmare. The faint pinpricks of light in your eyes, once a fleeting hope, now steadily intensified, slowly painting the absolute blackness with vague, shifting forms, the profound hum of the earth, your unseen guardian's presence, continued to resonate, a comforting pulse that seemed to accompany the slow, agonizing return of your vision. You lay there, on the smooth, cool tiles of the hidden chamber, allowing the mysterious nectar to work its magic, feeling your body and mind slowly stitch themselves back together. As the hours passed, the fuzzy shapes began to resolve into the faintest outlines of the vast cavern you were in. You could discern the massive, smooth columns that rose into an unseen ceiling, the shimmering reflections on the basin of nectar, and the subtle, almost imperceptible movement of the air. It was a world of muted greys and soft, indistinct blurs, a profound shift from the terrifying black, yet still far from the vibrant world you remembered. You were seeing, yes, but through a thick veil, as if viewing the world through frosted glass. This partial return of sight, a rare phenomenon after extreme trauma, is a fascinating aspect of physiological resilience, often described in historical medical texts as a miraculous recovery when the underlying stress or deficiency is alleviated. The creature that had guided you, the source of the melodic chime and the mental voice, remained unseen, a silent watchful presence somewhere in the vast chamber. You could still feel its subtle movements, the faint air currents it created, but you saw no definite form. It was a guardian, a benevolent mystery, its presence a profound comfort in your fragile state. Eventually, the hunger, dulled by the nectar, began to return, a familiar gnawing ache in your stomach, the need for true sustenance, for something solid, became an insistent demand. You knew your miraculous respite was temporary. You needed to find a way out, to return to the world, however dangerous, to truly heal and continue your search for Julian. You rose, slowly, carefully, your limbs still stiff and protesting, but imbued with a nascent strength. Your vision, though still veiled, was enough to navigate the vast, smooth chamber. You felt your way along the polished stone walls, searching for an exit, a passage that would lead upwards, back to the surface. The humming intensified as you moved, almost as if the chamber itself was responding to your intent. You found it a narrow, curving passage, subtly inclined upwards. It was darker than the main chamber, the faint light of your returning vision struggling to penetrate its depth. You hesitated for a moment, a flicker of the old fear returning. What lay beyond? More darkness, more dangers, but the urge to escape, to breathe the open air, to feel the sun on your face, was stronger than any lingering apprehension. You clutched the ancient book, its weight a comforting presence, and ventured into the ascending passage. The climb was slow and arduous. The passage was uneven, occasionally narrowing, forcing you to squeeze through tight spaces. Your bare feet slipped on patches of damp moss, and your scraped hands often found rough, jagged edges in the darkness. But the slope was consistently upwards, a constant, reassuring confirmation that you were heading in the right direction. The air grew steadily colder, carrying the familiar scent of damp earth and decaying leaves, the smell of the forest, the surface world, after what felt like an eternity. The passage widened into a small, dark cavern, and then a profound shift, a whisper of fresh air, cold and crisp, carrying the scent of pine and damp soil, and more importantly, a faint, undeniable grey light, not the soft silver of the chamber, but the raw, unadorned light of an overcast sky. You pushed forward, your heart pounding with renewed hope, scrambling over a final pile of loose rocks and rubble. You emerged, blinking, into the muted light of a dense forest. The world was still a hazy blur, but you could distinguish the towering silhouettes of ancient trees, the dark masses of bushes, the lighter patches of sky peeking through the canopy. The air was cold, damp, and invigorating, filling your lungs with fresh, unconfined breath. You were out of the darkness, out of the earth's depths. You were in a part of the forest you didn't recognize, a desolate, ancient section where the trees grew thick and gnarled, their branches heavy with silver-grey moss. The ground was uneven, a carpet of tangled roots and decaying leaves. The silence here was profound, a heavy, almost expectant stillness, broken only by the distant caw of a crow. It was a harsh, unforgiving landscape, but it was the surface, and it was 1,000 times better than the suffocating blackness of the underground. You began to walk, slowly at first, then with increasing purpose, relying on the faint, still imperfect guidance of your eyes and the growing strength in your limbs. Your goal was clear: find a path, find water, find food, and perhaps, somehow, find Julian. The memory of him, plummeting into the darkness, was a constant, aching pain in your heart, a driving force that kept you moving forward. You felt a profound grief for him, for the shared dream shattered by Gothel's cruel hand. This common historical fact about long-term survival in extreme conditions is the powerful role of emotional connection and a clear objective in sustaining hope and driving perseverance. The thought of Julian, whether alive or lost, gave you a reason to fight, a tangible purpose beyond mere existence. As you walked, the veil over your eyes seemed to thin, imperceptibly, by tiny degrees. The blurs sharpened, the grey hues began to separate into fainter greens and browns. You could distinguish individual leaves, the rough texture of bark, the subtle undulations of the forest floor. It was a slow, agonizing process, but your sight was undeniably returning, clearer with every step, a miraculous restoration. You came upon a small, muddy pond, its surface covered in a greenish film of algae. It wasn't the sparkling stream you longed for, but it was water. You knelt, cupped your hands, and drank, trying to ignore the stagnant taste and the faint, earthy smell. It was enough to quench the immediate thirst, to hydrate your still recovering body. As you splashed water on your face, you caught a glimpse of your reflection. It was hazy, distorted, but you could see the outlines of your face, thinner, sharper, but undeniably yours. And your hair, it was short, jagged, a stark, brutal reminder of Gothel's cruelty, but it was growing, already. A faint, soft fuzz at the roots, a quiet act of defiance. You continued to move, pushing through the forest, now guided by the faint, shimmering symbols of the ancient book. The maps, once a confusing riddle, now began to make a subtle, intuitive sense. You recognized the winding paths, the distinct rock formations, the peculiar trees, the symbols of the crescent moon and the spiral tree were your next landmarks, guiding you deeper into this strange, altered landscape. The air grew steadily colder, biting at your exposed skin, and the scent of decay intensified, becoming strangely sweet, almost cloying. You recognized it, the sickly sweet smell of the gingerbread house. A surge of revulsion, cold and immediate, washed over you. You remembered the tiny duck skull, the scattered bones. You changed direction instinctively, veering sharply away from the tempting, murderous scent, following a different set of pathways indicated by the map, a route that angled sharply away from any known human presence. This deliberate avoidance of the gingerbread house, despite the potential lure of shelter, signifies a crucial shift in your survival strategy. You were no longer passively reacting to the forest's dangers, but actively making choices based on hard-won knowledge and a deep, visceral understanding of its deceptive nature. This unusual or little-known detail about animal cognition in the wild, particularly after traumatic encounters, is their ability to develop highly specific avoidance behaviors based on learned cues, actively choosing safer, albeit often longer or more challenging, routes to avoid known threats. You were exhibiting a profound, animalistic wisdom, a deep-seated rejection of artificial comfort. As you pushed deeper into this new path, the forest began to change once more. The trees became sparser, their branches less tangled, allowing more of the muted light to filter down. The ground rose gently, forming rolling hills covered in a strange, silvery grey grass that shimmered faintly. The silence was profound here, a vast unbroken stillness that felt ancient, almost sacred. Historians still debate whether the concept of sacred groves or liminal spaces in ancient cultures, often depicted as places of transformation or transition, were purely spiritual constructs, or if they were inspired by specific geographical features that naturally created unique, acoustically distinct, or visually striking environments, leading to a sense of awe or otherworldliness. For you, this place felt undeniably different, a space set apart from the hostile chaos of the deeper forest, a new stage for whatever lay ahead. You felt a strange, almost expectant calm in this silvery landscape, a quiet anticipation of something new, something profound. You pressed onward, your feet crunching softly on the silvery grass, the book clutched tightly in your hand. The air grew colder, and a thin mist began to rise from the low-lying areas, swirling around your ankles like ghostly tendrils. You knew you were approaching something, a significant landmark indicated by the maps, a crucial turning point in your journey. The ancient symbols seemed to hum with a silent energy, guiding you with an invisible hand through the vast, silent beauty of this new, ethereal landscape. You were no longer simply lost. You were on a quest, guided by forgotten knowledge, moving towards a destiny still shrouded in the chilling mists. The vast silvery landscape stretched around you, a hauntingly beautiful contrast to the oppressive green of the deeper forest. The air, crisp and cold, tasted of ancient stone and faint, wild herbs. Your vision, though still a little hazy, was steadily improving, allowing you to distinguish the subtle undulations of the hills and the ethereal shimmer of the grass. The stone, clutched in your hand, felt warm, a comforting talisman in this strange, quiet place, and the book, tucked securely in your jacket, was your compass, its ancient maps whispering secrets of the path ahead. You pressed onward, following the subtle cues of the terrain and the cryptic directions of the map. The recurring symbols of crescent moons and the distinctive spiral-shaped tree guided you through the gentle slopes, your webbed feet treading softly on the shimmering grass. This wasn't a desperate scramble anymore. It was a deliberate journey, imbued with a new-found sense of purpose, a desperate quest for an elusive freedom. You moved with a quiet determination, your long neck stretched, scanning the horizon for the next landmark. As you walked, a new sound began to filter through the profound silence, a distant, almost imperceptible humming. It wasn't the deep, resonating thrum of the earth from the underground chamber, nor the unsettling buzz of the enchanted moss. This was lighter, higher pitched, strangely melodic, and it seemed to vibrate in the very air around you, a pervasive, almost ethereal sound that pulled you forward. It felt familiar, stirring a faint, elusive memory in the deepest recesses of your mind, a memory of warmth and belonging. The landscape subtly shifted again. The silvery grass gave way to patches of smoother, darker earth, and the distant trees grew denser, forming a darker silhouette against the pale sky. The humming grew stronger, resolving into a complex, multi-layered sound. It was the sound of voices, human voices, faint, melodic, harmonious, singing in unison. It was a chorus, weaving a tapestry of sound that resonated with a profound sense of peace and community. Your heart leaped. Human voices after so long. After the terrifying silence of the tower and the primal sounds of the wilderness. But then, a flicker of caution. You remembered the gingerbread house, its deceptive charm masking a terrifying hunger. You remembered Gothel's warnings, though now you knew them to be lies. Yet, the memory of her cruelty and the horrors of the forest had instilled a deep-seated wariness. You moved more slowly, more cautiously, a shadow among the trees, drawn by the irresistible pull of the voices, yet deeply afraid of what might lie at their source. The path led you to the edge of a small, hidden valley, nestled between two gentle, rolling hills. A thin mist hung low in the air, swirling around ancient, moss-covered stones that jutted from the earth like forgotten teeth. And there, in the centre of the valley, partially obscured by the mist, was a clearing, and in the clearing, gathered around a large, shimmering pool of water, were figures, many figures. Your breath caught in your throat. They were swans, not the solitary, sorrowful black swan you had encountered, but many swans. Their feathers were an iridescent white, glowing softly in the muted light, almost luminous against the dark backdrop of the trees. They were moving with an exquisite grace, their long necks curving elegantly as they dipped their heads into the shimmering water, and the humming, the melodic chorus, was coming from them. They were singing, a profound ancient song, full of a quiet joy and a deep, resonant peace. You watched them, hidden in the shadows, utterly mesmerized. They were beautiful, impossibly so, their forms radiating a serenity that was almost heartbreaking in its contrast to your own brutal journey. This was not a deceptive lure. This was a sanctuary, a place of profound unspoiled beauty, populated by creatures of ethereal grace. This was the source of the melodic humming that had drawn you here, a testament to the powerful, unifying force of their collective song. As you observed, one of the swans, larger and more regal than the others, raised its head, its dark eyes sweeping across the clearing. Its gaze settled, for a fleeting moment, directly on your hiding place. There was no alarm, no fear, only a deep, profound understanding, a quiet recognition. It was almost as if it had been expecting you, or knew of your presence. Then, it dipped its head back to the water, resuming its silent, graceful movements, its song blending seamlessly back into the collective chorus. It was an invitation, a silent acknowledgement, not a threat. You stepped out of the shadows, hesitantly at first, then with more confidence, drawn by an irresistible pull. Your short, ragged feathers, your still awkward gait, felt utterly out of place amongst their pristine elegance. But you felt no judgment from them, only an accepting stillness. As you approached the shimmering pool, the swans continued their humming, a soft, welcoming melody that wrapped around you like a warm embrace. This common historical fact about certain bird species, particularly waterfowl, is their strong social cohesion and often tolerant behaviour towards other species, especially when in their nesting or feeding grounds. They often exhibit a form of collective intelligence, sensing changes in their environment or the presence of new individuals, responding with a unified, often vocal, display of awareness. You are approaching a highly evolved community, a living example of synchronized harmony. You stood at the edge of the pool, gazing at your reflection. It was clearer now, almost fully restored, a stark image of your changed self. Your face, thinner and hardened by your ordeal, stared back at you. Your hair, once a flowing golden cascade, was now a jagged uneven mess, short and broken, a painful reminder of Gothel's cruelty. Your clothes were torn, soiled, and your body bore the scars of your brutal journey. You were a far cry from the beautiful, innocent girl who had once lived in the tower. You were a stranger to yourself, and then, as you watched your reflection, something miraculous began to happen. The faint fuzz at your scalp, the soft, new growth you'd noticed earlier, began to lengthen, rapidly, visibly, not just in inches, but in great, cascading waves. It wasn't the slow, painstaking growth of before. This was a torrent. A shimmering waterfall of new hair, pure and vibrant, but it wasn't golden. It was white, and impossibly bright, luminous white, like spun moonlight, unlike any colour you had ever possessed. It poured down your back, cascading over your shoulders, pooling around your feet, a breathtaking, instantaneous transformation. The sudden, inexplicable change was overwhelming. It wasn't just your hair. It felt as if your entire being was shifting, transforming, reaching its true form. The weight of it, immense as it was, no longer felt like a burden, but a natural extension, light and graceful. The swans, in the shimmering pool, seemed to shimmer too, their white feathers glowing with an even greater intensity, as if they were somehow connected to your transformation, reflecting your rebirth. This instantaneous, dramatic change in hair colour and growth, a profound shift in your very essence, highlights an unusual or little-known detail about the metaphorical power of transformation in folklore. While biologically impossible for hair to change colour or grow instantly, such dramatic physical metamorphoses often symbolise profound internal shifts, a shedding of old identities, a release from past trauma, and the emergence of a truer, more authentic self. You were not merely growing new hair, you were literally becoming a new version of yourself, purged of the golden chains of your past. You ran your hands through the impossibly soft, pure white strands, tears blurring your vision. It was beautiful, and it was yours, not Gothel's, not a tool of confinement, but a mark of your endurance, your survival, your profound transformation. As you stood there, awash in the shimmering light, a soft, high-pitched whimpering sound reached your ears, carried on the gentle breeze. It was faint, almost imperceptible beneath the swan's humming, but undeniably a sound of distress. Your head snapped up, your new, sensitive hearing straining to pinpoint its source. It was coming from deeper in the valley, beyond the pool, hidden by the swirling mist. And then another sound, a voice, weak, hoarse, but unmistakably human. Rapunzel. Your heart stopped. Julian. The sound of his voice, faint and broken, was like a physical blow, simultaneously exhilarating and agonizing. He was alive, but he was suffering. The swans around you continued their humming, a low, encouraging resonance, as if urging you forward, confirming the path. Historians still debate whether the ancient concept of true love's call in folklore, often depicted as a magical, irresistible pull that transcends distance and obstacles, was purely a romantic ideal, or if it drew from the profound, often inexplicable, empathetic connection that individuals in deep bonds can feel towards each other's distress. even across vast distances. For you. The debate was irrelevant. The call was undeniably real, a living tether between your soul and his, pulling you towards a desperate reunion, without another thought, driven by an overwhelming surge of love, urgency, and a fierce, protective instinct. You plunged into the swirling mist, following the faint, pained cry that called to you. The new, impossibly white hair streamed behind you, a luminous beacon in the fading light, guiding you towards the promise of reunion, and the horrifying truth of what your shared ordeal had cost. The journey was far from over. The healing had only just begun. You were no longer just a lost princess. You were a transformed survivor, ready to reclaim your love and face the final, brutal consequences of your enchanted nightmare. The mist swirled around you, a cold, damp shroud, muffling the sounds of the singing swans behind you. The sweet scent of the nectar faded, replaced by the sharp tang of damp earth and something acrid, almost metallic. Your new, impossibly white hair, lighter than any golden strand, flowed behind you, a luminous beacon in the pale, diffused light of the valley. Your feet, accustomed to the rough forest floor, now felt a strange urgency, carrying you swiftly towards the faint, pained whimper that beckoned to you. "Julian," you called out, your voice hoarse, raw with longing and fear. The mist seemed to swallow the sound, but you pressed on, guided by an instinct deeper than sight or hearing. Your transformed body, invigorated by the mysterious nectar, moved with a grace you hadn't possessed before, navigating the uneven terrain with surprising ease. The stone, clutched in your hand, felt like a small, warm heart, beating in rhythm with your own frantic pulse. And then you saw him. He lay huddled at the base of a massive, ancient oak tree, partially obscured by a thick curtain of ivy. He was a shadow, still unbroken, his clothes torn, his body bruised and bleeding. One arm was bent at an unnatural angle, and his face, his beautiful, kind face, was a mask of pain. His eyes were open, but they stared blankly, unfocused, at the misty sky. He was blind. A cry of anguish, sharp and piercing, tore from your throat. You fell to your knees beside him, your hands trembling as you reached out, tentatively touching his face. His skin was cold, clammy. "Julian," you sobbed, tears streaming down your face, hot against his cold cheek. "It's me, Rapunzel." He stirred, a faint moan escaping his lips. His head turned slightly, his blind eyes sweeping over your face without seeing. "Rapunzel," he whispered, his voice barely a breath. "Is it truly you? I cannot see you. The thorns, they tore at my eyes. Your heart shattered into a million pieces. The pain of your own blindness, the terror of your fall, paled in comparison to the agony of seeing him like this, suffering, lost, and sightless because of your shared defiance. You remembered the cruel thorns Gothel had thrown after him, how they had seemed to follow his plummeting form. The common historical fact about the dangers of falls from great heights, particularly in forests, is not only the direct impact injuries but also secondary injuries from impalement or entanglement with sharp vegetation, often resulting in blindness or severe lacerations. Julian's injuries were a grim testament to the brutal reality of his fall, a consequence of your desperate attempt at freedom. You gently cradled his head in your lap, stroking his matted, bloody hair. "Yes, Julian, it's me. I'm here. We're safe now," you whispered. Though the words felt hollow in the face of his pain, you pressed the warm stone to his forehead, hoping, praying, it held some of the healing power of the place you had just left. The humming of the swans seemed to grow louder, more insistent, a gentle urging. Then, an instinct, deep and powerful, seized you. You remembered the moment your own sight had returned, the profound, invigorating effect of the nectar, and the strange power of the hidden chamber. You thought of your transformed hair, now impossibly white, pure and flowing. With trembling hands, you gathered a long, impossibly soft strand of your new, white hair. It felt cool, alive, almost luminescent. You brought the tip of the strand to Julian's eyes, gently, carefully, and let a single, perfect tear fall from your own eye onto the end of the hair. Your tears, born of grief and profound love, caught on the shimmering white strand, glistening like liquid pearls. You then gently, reverently, touched the tear-laden tip of your hair to Julian's sightless eyes, allowing the single tear to roll across his eyelids. The touch was delicate, feather-light. For a moment, nothing happened. Your heart pounded, a frantic drum in your chest, and then a gasp, Julian's gasp. His blind eyes fluttered, then slowly, miraculously, they opened, not to the hazy blurs you had first experienced, but to a clear, vibrant vision. His gaze swept over your face, now sharp and focused, lingering on your short, stark hair, then trailing down the cascade of your impossibly white tresses. His eyes, once blank with despair, filled with wonder, then with profound recognition, and finally, with unspeakable relief and love. "Rapunzel," he whispered, his voice now strong, clear, filled with awe. "Your hair, it's white, and your eyes, you can see." He reached up, his uninjured hand brushing your cheek, then moving to touch the soft, flowing river of your new hair, his fingers tracing its incredible length. He was seeing you, truly seeing you, for the first time since his fall. The miracle had happened. Love, and a profound, inexplicable transformation, had healed him. This unusual or little-known detail in variations of the Rapunzel story often involves the prince's blindness being cured by Rapunzel's tears, symbolizing the healing power of profound love and emotional release. Your transformed hair, infused with your tears, had become the catalyst for his restoration, a testament to the raw, transformative power of shared suffering and enduring affection. Julian slowly, carefully, pushed himself up, his gaze never leaving yours. He noticed his injured arm, then the blood, but his eyes returned to you, filled with a happiness that eclipsed all pain. You helped him to his feet, supporting his weight, and together, you stood in the misty valley, two figures scarred and changed, but reunited, and miraculously healed. The humming of the swans continued, a gentle, pervasive melody that filled the air, a silent song of celebration for your reunion, for the healing you had found in their sacred space. You knew, instinctively, that this place, this valley of the white swans, was a place of transformation, a sanctuary that had nurtured your rebirth and facilitated Julian's miraculous healing. You looked at Julian, truly seeing him for the first time since his fall. He was still the handsome prince, but his face was etched with the lines of suffering. His eyes held a new depth, a solemn understanding of the world's harshness. And your own reflection, caught in his clear blue eyes, showed a woman forever changed. Your hair, once a golden prison, was now a flowing white banner of freedom and resilience. Your face, though still bearing the marks of your ordeal, was strong, determined, no longer innocent but wise. You both knew that the journey was not truly over. You had found each other. You had regained your sight. But the world beyond this sacred valley was still waiting. You had to find a true home, a place of safety where you could live freely, without fear of Gothel's vengeance, a place where your new, startlingly white hair would not mark you as a captive, but as a survivor. You had survived the tower, the underground, the blindness, and the wilderness. You had found love, and healed it. Now, you would face the world together. The historians still debate whether the happily ever after Endings of fairy tales were solely a narrative construct to provide solace and hope, or if they represented a symbolic aspiration for societal stability and resolution after periods of chaos and hardship. For you and Julian, there would be no simple ever after. Your lives were irrevocably marked by the tower, by Gothel's cruelty, by the terrifying fall and the miraculous healing. Your scars, both visible and invisible, would always be a part of your story. You took Julian's hand, his fingers strong and warm, a comforting anchor in the vast uncertain world. Together, you turned and walked out of the misty valley, leaving the singing swans and the shimmering pool behind. The ancient book, still clutched in your hand, now felt less like a map of escape and more like a chronicle of your profound journey, a testament to the disturbing secrets of Rapunzel's hair and the enduring power of love and resilience. The forest, once a nightmare, now felt like a test you had passed, its lessons etched into your very soul. You were heading towards a new dawn, two changed individuals, ready to build a new life, a new legend, forged in the crucible of an enchanted, terrifying, and ultimately transformative nightmare. And so, the tale of Rapunzel and the prince, not ending in a sparkling castle as we might have imagined, but in a long journey home, scarred yet hopeful, as you drift off to sleep. Remember that even the most familiar fairy tales hold disturbing secrets, real struggles, and the magic of resilience. Now, as you close your eyes, let the images of a moonlight white hair and the song of the swans lull you into a deep slumber. Let your body relax, allow all worries to fade, and know that even in the deepest darkness, there is always the light of hope and love to guide your way. Sleep now, and may your dreams be endless adventures, free from fear. Good night, and have sweet dream.